it's weird for the fact that basically all of my interpretation of the East Carolina defense pretty much came to pass off of it, and for the most part, what I was going into this game expecting for the Pirates came to fruition. I'm just a little disappointed in that case that all of that ended up being to the detriment of the Green Wave for the fact that they could not score within the red zone. The frustration of this entire first half was more the fact that Tulane outgained East Carolina 260-91. The Pirates could not get anything going. Time possession 18-11, but Tulane had 4 possessions in the first half make it to the red zone. And what did they do on every single drive? Penalty, either a false start by the offensive line or Amari Hayes, or there's a holding call whenever a touchdown. And that was almost the same way for any chunk plays in the first half and in the third quarter in itself. The fact of the first time they get a chance in the fourth quarter in the red zone, they hand it to Arnold Barnes at fullback, and he fumbles inside the 3. And at that point, you're thinking, oh, it's 16-12 East Carolina at that point, and then the Pirates are just going to run away with this. And it's like the idea that Pirates were at 13 points per game given up overall. And it was 4 field goals in the first half, all short field goals by Patrick Durkin. And it's like, are the Pirates going to lower their points per game defensively, despite the fact that they gave up over 450 yards worth of offense? Fortunately, their last 2 possessions, they were finally able to get a chunk play. They get a 1-play touchdown to basically the 4th string wide receiver, Zycarl Lewis, for a 63-yard bomb from Retzlaff. And they finally had some sort of momentum, which East Carolina, what they had been able to do all the second half of the game, just get those grind out drives. You thought that it was a detriment going in for the fact that they could not run the ball for more than 3-4 yards a carry. That's how they just grinded out that entire second half, and it worked to their advantage. Just those 4 5-minute drives, that entire third quarter, 3 possessions, 3 scoring possessions for those 16 points, 2 touchdowns and a field goal that gave a 4-point lead so going into that fourth quarter. And all the momentum went to the Pirates. Yeah, then you finally get the fumble. East Carolina can't do anything off of it. Tulane gets the ball at their own 37, and you get that big bomb. East Carolina gets a 13-play drive to end up tying the game with just under 6 minutes left in the game. Tulane, once they're finally able to get a extended drive with a few completions to Bryce Bohannon and Javen Gordon off of it. Zycarl Lewis, who was he was very important to this game whenever he needed to be. He's not one they normally go to too often, but those 2 big completions, a 12-yard pass on that last drive for Tulane and the 63-yard bomb. 12-yard game was probably most important because what it ended up being, that and the completion by Bryce Bohannon. They started the game over 7 on third down, and at that point the Pirates were 10 for 19 on third down, completely had the Green Wave thrown off of match. Once they had those 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, they did a short kickoff that was basically to the 30-yard line, and East Carolina was able to recover without any Green Wave player touching it. They did a bloop in an open area. It stayed in play. The Pirates recovered, converted it to a field goal, even though they can't get it anywhere further down the field. Then we're going to the fourth quarter, all the momentum for the Pirates. Other thing that really was the biggest surprise for the game, this was the first game for Tulane that they did not run for over 100 yards. They had 25 carries for 96 yards, and Retzlaff was not a factor on the ground. Only 4 attempts for 20 yards. He's had multiple games where he's rushed for over 100 yards on the ground, and East Carolina made them rely on Retzlaff throwing the ball. That ended up being effective to get the ball inside the 20. Not effective to get them to score. Finally had 1 red zone touchdown that they got on their 6th attempt. And at that point, Tulane's play call for the last 2 plays of their offensive possession to get them the lead. Back-to-back bootlegs by Retzlaff. Get the ball in space to Javen Gordon. The first one getting them down to the 4-yard line. Once Eastern Carolina was out of timeouts and Tulane was trying to just drain as much time as they did, the Pirates just essentially decided, it's like, with the Green Wave doing the same play, it's like, we want you to score. We want to get as much time left over. So nobody was around him with 30 seconds left to go, and it gave them their one and only red zone touchdown. And unfortunately, a couple plays later, East Carolina was able to get a couple chunk plays in space, get the ball for Caden Hauser to have a chance to throw a Hail Mary pass in the end zone. Fortunately, incomplete, and Tulane escapes with a 7-point win. You realize that 6.5 point spread actually was a pretty good call. But yeah, for this game, Retzlaff, 26 for 36, 347, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That doubled his number of passing touchdowns for the season. In that same way, zero rushing touchdowns by anybody. Javen Gordon led with 34 yards. Arnold Baines, 31. Retzlaff, 20. And kind of in the same retrospect of East Carolina last week on their fake field goal touchdown, Tulane tried to do it on their fake field goal on a 4th and 11. Durkin only gets stopped for a 5-yard game, turning the ball over in a point where you could tell Tulane's offensive coordinator was getting sick and tired of being held to field goals, so they wanted to change it up on that 4th possession that they failed in the red zone. Unfortunately, nothing happened, and turnover on downs. East Carolina in the first half, 2 for 7 for third down, ended up being 10 for 19 for the game. They had 6 first downs in the first half, 22 for the game, so 60 in the second half. 91 yards in the first half, so 249 in the second half, and had the ball basically 19 minutes. What got this team back in the game was the fact that Tulane could not convert in the red zone. They kept shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, 11 penalties in total for 96 yards. That 458 yards of offense is all nice and good. You should get more than 2 touchdowns in that entire game. A lot of the script on this was what we expected. You had, honestly, the first 4 games of East Carolina's season, Hauser has had a decrease in passing yards for each individual one, and that continued on this one where he was 19 for 30 for 180 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. He was able to protect the ball, yes, but they were so dragged down in that first half that they couldn't get anything in the air or on the ground. It was such an impressive first half defensively. For the fact that fell apart so quickly in the third quarter, that was such a mind-numbingly frustrating third quarter. The Pirates offensively, they play with speed. They want to do a bunch of quick passes, screen passes, short slants, a bunch of 3-4 yards. Get the ball out, get as many plays run as they can. Honestly, very similar to an Ole Miss offense. In this case, that third quarter, it was completely dominated. They had 3 possessions even though Tulane got the ball to start. And on those 2 possessions for the Green Wave, 6 plays, -6 yards. Comparison for basically 9 of that 15-minute quarter. The first possession the Pirates have, 6 for 70. Honestly, very efficient off of that gain to where they were finally able to get the one chunk play they really got for the game for 49 yards. And then eventually able to get in for Hauser's only touchdown pass. Then the second possession, 15 plays, 57 yards, took 6 minutes off the clock. You could tell at the end the speed of the game was starting to gash Tulane, and they weren't able to take advantage of all of the massive stat advantages that they had in the first half. And from there, East Carolina, all the possession, even had the lead, even though they failed on a 2-point conversion. Fortunately for them, they were able to hold on and get to 5-1 overall in the season, and getting 2-0 in the conference, as the American as a whole actually is more conducively a better conference this season, top to bottom. You have the top 6 teams undefeated in conference. Likely you're going to have those top 5 teams fighting for this conference championship. And the winner of this is very likely going to be that group of 5 team to make the playoff. Because you have Navy, who's already 3-0, even though they haven't played anyone. You have Memphis, who has that impressive win against Arkansas, even though Arkansas is not great and already fired their coach. Tulane themselves had the win against Northwestern and the game against Duke, which actually is probably one of the better ones on this schedule. North Texas, also undefeated in conference and undefeated overall, probably the least likely of the teams to carry on with this. But South Florida themselves, they already have a win against the University of Florida, and their only loss is to top-seeded Miami. So all 5 of these teams very likely going to be in the race for the American. But it was a game for the Green Wave that they could not slip up on, and midway through the season with only 1 loss, all of their aspirations are still intact. At this point, they should be favored in 5 of their last 6 games. The only game, which is probably going to decide one of the teams in the conference championship, is that game at Memphis on Friday, the first weekend of November. So we'll see how that goes there. But once again, Tulane survives 26-19, going up to 5-1, despite the fact of red zone woes, penalty woes, and rushing woes. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. More content coming soon. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this. Comment if there's anything else you want to see off of it. I'll try to branch things out a little bit more. But thank y'all for watching. More videos coming up soon. I'm out.